Hello and welcome back to Grand Prix Prague. Very sorry about the slight technical difficulties there that caught us short a little bit at the end of round 14. You have not missed any magic in our main tournament though. Round 15 just kicking off here, and the pairings in this last round, Matej Zadelkai, are exciting. We have three people who've locked up their top 8 slots. Thomas Enevoldsen, Niels Molle and Gianluca Gazzola. All of them though are playing against players who cannot take a draw.
Yes, because this is very unusual that we have actually no draws in the last round of the tournament. I haven't seen it for quite a while because all the 350 players are paired down because they've already played each other, which means that like the only losses they inflicted to each other is when they played. So it's Niels Molle, Thomas Enevoldsen, and Gianluca Gazzola, and we have Thomas Enevoldsen here, who is on 13-1 record.
Yeah, we'll just get that updated for you on our graphic. Thomas has already got enough wins that he's in the top 8, but this match does still need to be played out because of the number of wins that Lukas Blohon is on. He desperately needs to get those extra points. We see Thomas Enevoldsen here, gets down the early Aether Vial, has a Mother of Runes that if it gets to hang around is going to be very, very powerful against the Shardless Bug deck of Lukas Blohon. His removal gets a lot worse when creatures can just get protection from color at instant speed.
So he's going to want to get that off the table real quick. Dismember taking down the Mother of Runes at the cost of some life though. And but Thomas starting off with Aether Vial and no Abrupt Decay from Lukas just means he's going to be in great shape for the following turns. I already see the dreaded Thalia and Caracas combination. So it looks like Thomas is going to start off with putting the Thalia into play so that his follow-up play of Mirren Crusader is not going to get countered by a Force of Will. And Mirren Crusader actually really powerful against the Shardless Agent deck. They have very few answers overall. Their deck is black-green, and but the blue cards don't really help you deal with the Mirren Crusader. This game can be over quickly.
Now let's talk a little bit about the other matches going on in our feature match area, because all of them relatively high pressure in terms of what our top 8 is going to look like at the end of this round. Who else have we got in our feature match area?
We also have Sveinung Bjornerud playing against Niels Molle at table 1. Niels Molle is at 13-1. Sveinung has 3 points less, so he really needs the win here. That's Shardless Sultai against Sneaking Show or Omni Show, whatever you want to call it. And then the other matches are Alexander Hayne against Gianluca Gazzola. Again, the 39 paired down against Alexander Hayne, who's playing for his top 8. And then we also have Scott Daniels against Rodrigo Togores, fighting for it. But there's 2 more matches with top 8s on the line, so we'll see how the top 8 looks in the end there.
And a pretty impressive board here for Thomas Enevoldsen, not one that Lukas Blohon has found much of an immediate answer for here. He's casting a Shardless Agent though, and if this cascades in something good, he can potentially make something happen. Baleful Strix does draw him a card, it gets an extra body on the board. None of the bodies that Lukas Blohon has available to him though are going to be able to stop Mirren Crusader. Protection from black, protection from green, double strike, it's a 2-2. I mean, even the first strike on Thalia means that it can get stuck in here without too much concern.
Yeah, funnily enough, what Thomas also could do here, if Lukas had decided to double block to kill the Thalia, he can deal first strike damage and then return it to his hand with Caracas and just replay with the Aether Vial. We also know he has a spare copy in his hand, so I think he's going to start working on Lucas's mana now, trying to prevent him from casting some more expensive spells. So yeah, there goes the Rishadan Port activations. And Lukas now left with the Swamp, and it still has a Deathrite Shaman, but no lands in the graveyard just yet.
Yeah, Rishadan Port is one of those cards that looks very innocuous, and then you see it doing things like it's doing in this game, really limiting Lukas Blohon's options in terms of what he's going to be able to achieve. Because with Thalia in play as well, any spell, any non-creature spell that he's casting is costing 1 more. If he hadn't had a Tropical Island there, it may well have been that he literally could not cast a single card in his hand. Yeah. Even with it, it's going to make his life kind of difficult.
Yeah, I mean, also all the plays that he can make here, it just doesn't feel relevant. Yeah, he's trying to swing back for something because he has a Tarmogoyf to play that can at least block the Thalia, but it cannot do anything about the Mirren Crusader. Unfortunate for Lukas.
A little stay of execution there that the Aether Vial didn't have a 2-drop to plop into play at end of turn there. That could have been lights out for Lukas Blohon. As things stand though, still not in great shape. Mirren Crusader crashing in for 4 there, dropping Lukas Blohon to just 6 life, and plenty more action coming from Thomas Enevoldsen. He gets to make mana life difficult for Lukas Blohon here, and still keeps Caracas up so that if he needs to, he's going to be able to bounce his own copy of Thalia. Not too many legends on the other side of the table for Lukas Blohon.
Not yet, no, but it looks like Lukas did draw a Bayou, so at least he can play another Shardless Agent. but there's not much he can actually find that will impact the game relevantly here.
I mean, how does it work when you cascade into something when Thalia's in play?
You still have to pay the mana for it. If it's a non-creature spell, of course. If it's a creature spell, he can have that. I think like the best case scenario, maybe if he goes and finds another Tarmogoyf, maybe just to have any hope of outracing the Mirran Crusader. But Lukas drops to 5 here, so just a lowly attack with the Mirran Crusader, and then again the next turn should be enough.
And that we do know that there's a fair amount of equipment in Thomas Enevoldsen's deck. If he happened to draw into a sort of Fire and Ice, say, that could be game over.
Yeah, so actually goes for the Charlotte's Agent through the Deathrite Shaman. Yeah, not very relevant here. Not much going on with the graveyards.
I mean, that way around he did have mana up that if he had hit a spell, he would have still been able to pay for Thalia.
Yeah, but Thomas can just block the Charlotte's Agent here with the Thalia. It has first strike. Okay, he's just gonna block the Tarmogoyf and return the Thalia. He doesn't want to get outraced, it seems like. And Thomas like, no, I'm not passing anything. There's another Deathrite Shaman from Lukas, but it's black and green, so the Mirran Crusader really taking care of that one.
So Thomas Enevoldsen drawing more lands here. 13 life ought to be fairly safe.
Yeah, 1.
Less so.
Yeah, now 1/1. Thomas is going to get to work on those green color producing lands there. Oh no, he's going for the blue ones and black ones. I like tapping the green more, but
just because you can completely cut off green.
Yeah.
I guess there's also less green instants that you might be able to play in response, tap the land for mana in response.
Yeah, and you have Thalia as well, so you're not really scared of the blue Ponder Brainstorm turns where your opponent just gets to see a whole lot of cards.
Big attacks here from Lukas Blohon, but there is that Thalia to block, get bounced, come straight back down again, and Lukas Blohon says, you know what, that's good enough, you've got this one.
The moment Thomas resolved it, Mirran Crusader, the game felt over. It's just so powerful against Charlotte's Soul Tie. Remember, it's Lukas Blohon that's under pressure to win this round. Thomas Enevoldsen is already locked for the top 8.
And we've heard that there's some good synchronized magic going on in our last round here. So we're going to have a little look at sideboards here while the players try and make their changes before game 2, because that's basically what everyone in our feature match area is doing. If we jumped across, we would just see different sets of hands doing more or less the same sort of work. So on Thomas Enevoldsen's side, he has the potential to bring in little bits and pieces to tweak his matchup. Rest in Peace may mean that Tarmogoyf is less effective, but the changes that he is making could potentially be quite small. Yeah,
I assume we'll probably see the Relic of Progenitors, Rest in Peace, maybe the Pithing Needle, because there's always the Lilian, Deathrite Shaman doing way too much work. But I don't think there's going to be much else. I would love to see a Gideon, Ally of Zendikar, or maybe a Cataclysm, but I don't expect too much. And from Lucas's side, I think he's going to bring in the Toxic Deluge, because he needs that to be able to clear the board.
It's also a good way of getting around Mother of Runes.
Yeah, he could probably bring in Diabolic Edict as well. Umezawa's Jete could do some work on a flyer on a big Tarmogoyf. Yeah, he has options. Probably Disfigure as well. The one problem with he has to worry about is overboarding. But in this matchup, he can actually he has cards to cut. Him to Torak is actually not that great, even though it's better on the play. But it doesn't seem that great. It's only good early. And Force of Will also in this matchup, not at its finest, especially if your opponent lands an early Ether Vial. But he does have Abrupt Decay to deal with those, so we'll see how exactly he's going to sideboard. I talked to Thomas a little bit before this round, and he was obviously really happy about making the top 8 already.
Well, qualified for the Pro Tour.
Qualified for Pro Tour Hawaii, which is Pro Tour Kaladesh. Very excited about that set. And so he's doing really well for himself. And he even said, like, I told him, like, you look really good when you play Death and Taxes. You seem to be always in control, and your opponents are struggling to really figure out what you're trying to accomplish. And he's like, yeah, well, you know, and at this stage, people don't know how to play against this deck as well as back home, where they've known for me to play the deck for 4 years. And they've learned how to play against Death and Taxes by now. So he's really experienced with the deck, and it just pays off. It's going to be his second Legacy GP top 8.
With essentially this deck.
Yeah. He won Strasbourg with it, and his friend Michael Bond made the top 8 of that tournament as well. So you can see just the experience can really carry you to successive successes.
I like it. I do. I mean, relatively minor changes in his list here from what he was playing with a few years ago. Banisher Priest, one of the newer additions to the deck, that came out in the Commander set and has proven to be rather effective. It works very well with Eldrazi Displacer. That's something I've seen a little bit in Vintage. It's not in this particular Death and Taxes list, but I've certainly seen it talked about for Death and Taxes. Brimaz, King of Oreskos, I don't think was in there last time round, but with so much equipment going on, very powerful addition, and of course hard, easy to keep around with your Caracas, sometimes bouncing it if your opponent tries to deal with it.
And I've seen that come up quite a few times already. It's really combination. Thomas's hand looks a little shaky there. I think he has double Caracas, so which is not great, but also Wasteland. He's keeping so far. Draws a Horizon Canopy, so that's good, and has the turn 1 Mother of Runes, which might need to be answered very quickly by Lukas. Just because it seems too unassuming. Why is a 1/1 creature for 1 so important? But being able to give you protection to your creatures and prevent them from dying to something like Dismember and such is just really important.
Yeah, it's one of those things where protection, secretly probably among the most powerful abilities that creatures can have. It's something that actually has pretty much been phased out of newer Magic cards now, partly because it can get a little bit confusing to understand. Creatures can't take damage, can't be targeted by, can't be blocked by, can't be enchanted or have permanents of that color attached to them based on protection from different colors. And this deck utilizes them quite a bit. Yeah,
so we'll see which equipment we see this game. Protection is certainly very powerful. And we saw the protection of the Mirren Crusader do some serious work. So even though Mother of Runes can only give you 1 protection at a time, during combat it can just lead to some nice blowouts, which Lukas has to play around. And look at he's fetching basics first. He knows that the Death and Taxes deck is a lot about mana denial. Sometimes they call it a prison deck.
Yeah, I mean, basically the idea behind a prison deck is that through the nature of your plays, you make it so your opponent can't cast their spells. Getting rid of land is one of the easiest ways of doing that. Killing off the Mother of Runes is important, but fetching basics may be even more important because it means that there are fewer ways for Thomas Enevoldsen to tax the mana of his opponent with his Death and Taxes deck.
Yeah. I think he has a Banisher Priest in his hand too. It's a 1-off in his deck. It's a 3-mana creature that you can exile something, a creature of your opponent, when it enters the battlefield, as long as it's on the battlefield. So another fancy 1-off that can take care of. Yeah, Tom is expecting a removal spell. Okay, there it comes.
Yeah, it came a little bit later than build, but ultimately just as effective.
But it's actually not that bad for Thomas if he can stabilize the board somewhat, because Lukas already used 2 Abrupt Decays, which are actually one of the more important cards in this matchup because they kill the Sword of Fire Knights, the Umezawa's Jitte, Brimaz, Talia, and so on. And he's already used 2 out of his 3, I believe. No, he plays 4, so but half of the Abrupt Decays are gone. So it might give Thomas Enevoldsen some more freedom to play his cards and not have to worry about them dying to an Abrupt Decay.
Now he's got a few options here in terms of his mana. There is both a Stoneforge Mystic and a Rest in Peace in hand for Thomas Enevoldsen here. Each of them obviously powerful to get on board for different reasons. The Rest in Peace will mean that Deathrite Shaman not really able to use any of its abilities, just a 1/2 for 1. Whereas Stoneforge Mystic can potentially allow Thomas to develop his board and actually start attacking. It'll be interesting to see which one he goes with here. Horizon Canopy, the land play, and that periodically will cost him a bit of life, but equally he can at some point cash it in for a card. Plays the Rest in Peace, gets rid of graveyards, and then follows up with Wasteland in order to get rid of Underground Sea. So Lukas Blohon back to just 2 colors of mana, and that means that a lot of the deck manipulation available to him kind of goes away. Yeah,
he does have a fetch land for the follow-up, but yeah, there's Wasteland on Caracas. He certainly doesn't mind it because Thomas has a follow-up Caracas. But the sequence of plays was so important for Thomas because if he hadn't Wasteland the Underground Sea and played Rest in Peace, Lukas would have been able to play Umezawa's Jitte and equip the same turn, which is actually quite a problem.
I mean, let's be under no false pretenses here. And Umezawa's GTA, even not equipped yet, is still a big problem for Thomas Enevoldsen. There are 2 creatures in play. Thalia does have first strike, so actually represents a great answer to the GTA, because whatever gets equipped with it, if Thalia blocks it, well, first strike damage will kill it off before the creature with the GTA gets to deal any damage. No counters on the GTA, no problem.
Yeah, so for now, Thalia will be on defense while Thomas kind of readjusts his board back up. Lukas will go for blue stores here with Verdant Catacombs, probably an underground sea, and suspend Ancestral Visions, and probably add another Deathrite Shaman to his board. Might keep it in his hand for future potential brainstorms and shuffles and so on, because with Rest in Peace in play, Deathrite Shamans really don't do anything, so he might just live in his hand.
I mean, there's an argument to simply say that with a GTA on the board, creatures do plenty. Goes for the equip on the Shardless Agent here. But Thomas Enevoldsen has bought himself a little bit of time with that copy of Thalia.
Now comes a critical turn. Thomas has a Caracas, and he can play Mangara of Corondor, which is a 3-mana 1/1, which says you tap it, and then you exile itself and another target permanent. Oh, but he goes for it's Banisher Priest, not Mangara, but we know he actually cut it as well, but his friends are playing it, so it's just a Banisher Priest taking care of the Shardless Agent, but it's actually still fine. There's not much going on Lukas' side of the board, except another Ancestral Vision.
I mean, he would much rather be leaving them somewhere in his deck to cascade into than drawing them, though. I think this game likely to go long enough where he will be able to draw additional cards with these successive copies of Ancestral Vision. And when you have 2 of them going off, 6 extra cards over the course of a couple of turns is a pretty big deal.
Yeah. With Thalia in play, you still have to pay the 1 mana, though, for it. Okay. He's just going to return it to his hand and replay it. Doesn't need to protect it from removal. He has another one in his hand. Oh, but there's a interesting card. Diabolic Edict drawn from Lukas Blohon. Means that he can have Thomas sacrifice either the Banisher Priest or the Thalia.
I mean, it basically kind of has to be the Banisher Priest, right? Because if you sacrifice Thalia, that means the Deathrite Shaman gets to attack, gets to put counters on the GTA and kills the other creature anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But he's holding off for the time being. Draws a Council Judgment here as well. So, yeah.
Costing 1 more because of that Thalia. But now the way the Council's Judgment works with 2 players is each player gets to pick a permanent, and the casting vote ultimately with the caster. That gets rid of Umezawa's GTA, thank you very much. And attacks met with Diabolic Edict from the other side of the table.
Yep, and Thalia's going to hit the bin because Thomas wants to keep around his Banisher Priest. He doesn't want to give Lukas the Shardless Agent back. And we also know that Thomas has a replacement Thalia in his hand. Yeah. 3rd Abrupt Decay, though.
We spoke about how important Abrupt Decay is, and a couple of interesting targets here. I mean, do you go for the Rest in Peace so that your Deathrite Shaman gets to do its work, or 2 Deathrite Shaman, should I say, or do you get rid of Containment Priest at just the right moment that you can put an extra creature into play at instant speed?
Well, tough times for Thomas Enevoldsen. He did draw a 5th land to be able to cast the Battle Skull, but it's another Caracas, so he could still actually put some use as he drops Lukas down to 11. And there he taps it for mana, plays a new one, and now he's going to play a Battle Skull, because if he had played the Thalia first, he would probably never able to hardcast the Battle Skull.
So we have a 4/4 Germ with Lifelink and Vigilance in play.
Yep.
Happily the largest creature on the board, but the creature itself, the Germ token, has a casting cost of 0. It is a 0/0. As such, Abrupt Decay, a fine answer, and we have Ancestral Vision #1 resolving.
Yeah. Next turn, it's going to be another one. Lukas draws his 4th Abrupt Decay. This is getting ridiculous. He's hasn't been even through that many cards in his deck, and yet he might want to destroy that Rest in Peace because he has the 3rd Deathrite Shaman.
I mean, there's not very much food for the Deathrite Shaman at present, but once you get rid of the Rest in Peace, it doesn't take too long to get cards in the graveyard.
Thomas is getting low on life, and this is why it's going to be a little problematic for Thomas here, because if Lukas Abrupt Decays the Rest in Peace, Lukas can just pop off the Instructional Visions, fill his graveyard with some instants and sorceries, and you can look at his own Horizon Canopy just dealt him so much damage over the length of the game.
So Thomas Enevoldsen fetching an Umezawa's Jite here with his Stoneforge Mystic. That Jite could prove very important just from a life game perspective here. There are, of course, plenty of copies of Deathrite Shaman that he's going to want to be able to kill off, but first priority has to be staying alive in this match.
Yeah. Remember, by playing the Thalia, Lukas still has to add an extra mana to all the spells he casts, so then Ancestral Visions, when it comes on spend, you still play it, so you pay an additional mana. Now the Abrupt Decay costs 3. It's not as attractive of a proposition anymore, especially with Thomas threatening to play that Umezawa's Jite.
Plenty of land available for Lukas Blohon. Passes the turn back.
Tricky spot for both players.
And Aetherval the draw there for Enevoldsen. That one of the cards that is very high impact on the first turn. At this point, unlikely to do a great deal.
Yeah, remember, Lukas really needs to win, because if he loses this game, he's out of top 8 contention. And Thomas Enevoldsen is already locked up, as you can see there on our scoreboard, 13-1. We believe that 13-2 will be enough for all the players. And we do have at least, well, we believe we have 6 matches that are relevant for top 8 contention, this being one of them.
And of course, if Lukas Blohon wins and both these players are in top 8, then just these two alone means that this is a top 8 with quite the caliber to it. Thomas Enevoldsen, a former world team champion with Team Denmark, as led by Martin Müller in 2015.
Yeah.
2014, sorry.
14? Yeah, 14. I actually watched some of the videos back from that World Magic Cup. It was a good tournament, and not only because I did well, you know, adding the humble brags in there. But not as good as Thomas, that's for sure. That team with Martin Müller and Simon Nielsen, like all these players have been mainstays ever since.
Yeah, it turned out to be a powerhouse team and romped to victory there. So, just figure an interesting draw here for Lukas Blohon. Plenty of targets, and he has the mana to be able to cast it, which is pretty important.
Maybe he'll get to kill the Thalia. But I'm still surprised Lukas is just unwilling to go destroy that Rest in Peace and go to town with his Deathrite Shamans.
A patient game being played by the Czech player here.
As I actually had a tweet today where I said I love watching both play, and now it's basically the perfect world. I get to see them play against each other. It's great. Love it.
And it is actually a very interesting matchup as well. There are lots of intricacies of both of these decks. A lot to learn here about sequencing, about recognizing where the real threats are, and what to do at any given moment. I mean, sort of, there are points of time in the game where wastelanding your opponent's lands is absolutely correct, but at some point you may just need to use that mana yourself, and destroying your opponent's lands becomes less relevant. Recognizing when you turn around that corner is one of the important skills in what's a complicated match.
So there's this figure ignoring the Thalia because of Caracas, we assume. So he's going to get his Shardless Agent back and taps down the Tropical Island in the upkeep. I don't think Lukas is going to mind that much here.
Yeah, Lukas, of course, having drawn just a whole raft of additional cards thanks to those Ancestral Visions. So he's in a position where hitting land drops shouldn't be a problem for a few turns yet, even if some of them are being tapped down by Rishadan Ports.
But now the problem with the way Lukas played this game is that if the Umezawa's Jite now gets to work, especially on the Thalia, the combination of Umezawa's Jite and First Strike is actually quite problematic.
Yeah, even if you double block with double, triple, quadruple block, creatures get killed off to First Strike, counters go on the Jite, those counters can get used to either pump the creature that you've got equipped or give -1/-1 counters out, so that one way or another it becomes very, very difficult to trade with a creature that's got the Jite.
And what makes that even worse now, that if Lukas decides to use his last Abrupt Decay to destroy the Umezawa's Jite, which I assume will happen. The problem is that Lukas is out of Abrupt Decay, so the Rest in Peace is going to stay in play for the rest of the game. I don't think he has any other answers to that card. Okay, he has a Golgari Charm that destroys enchantment. Fair enough. I wonder if he brought that in. But that turns off, if the Rest in Peace stays in play, that makes his Deathrite Shamans as well as his Tarmogoyfs pretty useless. So, yeah, he goes for it, and if he wants to stay in this game, I hope he had sideboarded in the Golgari Charm.
Now, worth noting that while Caracas, the old Legend version, does say bounce target legendary permanent, that actually is not the current wording of the card. It can only bounce legends, creature legends, which is the reason that Umezawa's Jitte did go to the graveyard there rather than getting bounced by Caracas.
Yeah. I'm glad it works that way. I wouldn't want Caracas returning any Jitte's to their owner's hand. And there's a triple block from the Deathrite Shamans. Putting it all out there. So it's going to kill one. Not returning it after first strike damage. Interesting. Doesn't value it that much. Rather goes for Evoker and drops down to 4 life here.
Be interested to see what he names here on the Revoker, because I don't know how much card counting he'll have been doing, but maybe he's figured out that with those Abrupt Decays gone, his Rest in Peace is safe, so he doesn't necessarily have as much pressure on having to name Deathrite Shaman. We'll find out on that soon enough.
Yep. We'll get the information soon. I would assume it's either Deathrite Shaman or Liliana. Oh, hello. Oh, good thing I mentioned that card.
Yeah, there's plenty of interesting options here for the Golgari Charm. It could be used to kill off the Phyrexian Revoker.
Yep, so he goes for it. Gives all creatures -1/-1. Still, he keeps ignoring that Rest in Peace, which I admire.
Thomas Enevoldsen appears to have ignored the Rest in Peace as well. That Phyrexian Revoker should be in his exiled zone. We'll see him get that fixed shortly. Unlikely to have a huge impact on the game, but in case we weren't sure, Tarmogoyf is still rubbish.
Yes, it's still a 0-1. But Lukas is building up a board of 2/2s, which actually works fine on this board. So he just decided to go the full bear plan, meaning 3-mana 2/2s. I mean, with a very good ability, but yeah, that's enough for Lukas. I like the way he played, even though I was surprised with what he wanted to achieve with the Abrupt Decay, but it worked out really well in the end.
Yeah, I mean, you called it very, very early on in that particular game how important Abrupt Decay is in this matchup, and drawing all 4 of them, he was able to just stay far ahead enough to be able to make life difficult for Enevoldsen. Though it must be said that in total, that Horizon Canopy did a lot of damage there, which certainly did not help the cause of the Dane there. So these players shuffling up. We may get a chance for a brief look in at one of our other matches as they do so. We're going to be going to a game 3 there, but we do have other matches going on in the feature match area, which are apparently also shuffling up and doing their sideboarding again. So while these players are looking at their sideboards again, let's just have another look at the names that we think are at least fighting for top 8 here.
Yes. So I did the math. I channeled my inner Frank Karsten. So we have table 1 is going to play Niels Molle against Sveinung Bjornerud. Table 2 is Thomas Enevoldsen against Lukas Blohon, and table 3 Gianluca Gazzola against Alexander Hayne. This basically means that the players I mentioned in Molle, Enevoldsen, and Gianluca Gazzola are on 39 points, which we think is enough for the top 8, almost assuredly. They also have very good tiebreakers. But all their 3 opponents in Bjornerud, Blohon, and Hayne are on 36 points and need to win this round to make it in, and they can't really draw because there's other tables which are relevant for the top 8. So that means we think that if the all 36 pointers win, then we have 6 players in the top 8 from these first 3 tables. However, we have 3 more tables with players at 36 points. That is Scott Daniels against Rodrigo Togores. Rodrigo being a very highly regarded legacy specialist. I've talked to people here from the European legacy scene, and they're all really high on Rodrigo. So they're certainly rooting for him. And Mikael Taitinen against the Molle group. We saw Mikael on that White Red Death and Taxes deck. It's also very interesting. So these are also vying for a slot in the top 8. And then it's the match between Lukas Diem and Arno Baglin. These players have pretty bad tiebreakers, but will probably make it into the top 8 unless all the 3 36 pointers on tables 1, 2, and 3 all win, I believe.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of cascading math depending on exactly how the matches on the top 3 tables go. if players on 39 points win again, then that effectively opens up a slot somewhere lower down.
Yeah, and it actually might mean that even players such as Nicholas Stolans, who is on 35 points coming in, can sneak in with 12 wins and 2 draws.
Exciting stuff. It looks like the players just sort of finishing up their shuffling routines. You can see lots being prepared here. We will have a turbo match that's being recorded here, so we'll be able to get a little bit more magic in for you before we get to our top 8 announcement. But right now, lots of shuffling, and we will be back with our main match, that being the match between Thomas Enevoldsen and Lukas Blohon very, very shortly indeed.
Yeah, fantastic tournament from both so far, so I'm really looking forward to that Game 3.
All right, looks like things are kicking off here. Players drawing their opening 7s. A couple of Richard ports in hand for Thomas Enevoldsen. They, on their own, will not be good enough, but if he has at least one white source, then this could still very much be a keeper. And on the other side of things, there's Abrupt Decay, there's Golgari Charm. It looks like it might even be a Maelstrom Pulse for Lukas Blohon, but just the one land, leaning very hard on the Brainstorm. Thomas Enevoldsen sends his hand back, and it looks like Lukas Blohon going to do exactly the same thing there. Now, if you had to choose between these decks, which one you wanted to start on 6 with, Matej, which one would you go with?
I think the Charles deck is a little better on 6, just because you have Brainstorm, you have Deathrite Shaman still for some powerful opening draws. So, and I wonder how Lukas sideboarded, but he could also even have something like a Sylvan Library to really get the cards back, get the card selection rolling, or even Ancestral Visions, in the early game. It looks like Lukas has a lot of answers for what Thomas is trying to do. He has those 4 Abrupt Decays, because I've seen the Charlotte decks running only 3. He also has the Maelstrom Pulse and main deck, combined with that Golgari Charm in the sideboard. He has a lot of answers to the equipment that Thomas can be presenting, as well as some of the creatures. Together, we also had Diabolic Edict, right, that Lukas sideboarded in. I'm sure he brought in Jace the Mind Sculptor too.
Yeah, always good to have your sideboard cards actually be live. One of the feelings that I hate at the end of a tournament is where I had 15 sideboard cards and I had 5, 6 of them that I just didn't use over the course of the day. So, looks like this may be a one-lander for Thomas Enevoldsen, a head scratcher. He's going to have that scry if he does choose to keep. But in total, I mean, the number of lands that are in his deck, he has, what, 4, 8... he has 23, which for a legacy deck is loads, and none of those are fetch lands, so they're all sort of real live draws of lands, should he so choose. Looks like he has kept, and this scry, is it going to be top or bottom? Both these players considering it's simultaneous scrying going on here.
Okay, so Thomas decides to bottom there. Lukas kept, though. He kept the fetch land on top.
Oh, he's got plenty of land to work with.
Yeah, he has Thoughtseize as well, which is great against the mulligan. You can see why he was thinking. Swords to Plowshare, Swords to Fire Knife, Serra Avenger, Council Gentleman, and one more card that I can't quite make out. Yeah, no creatures, no Ether Vials. Not a great hand for Thomas Enevoldsen.
I'd be interested to see what he draws on the first turn here. What it was that he... oh, yeah, he scryed to the bottom though, didn't he? So he's working on a random card on top.
Oh, it was a Stormforge Mystic, so the best card in the hand hidden away safely. And no second land.
Yeah, sees a second Swords to Plowshares, which may help at some point, but a second Thoughtseize, not what he was hoping to find on the other side of things.
And Lukas does have a follow-up Brainstorm, and he can use it actually very nicely together with the Shardless Agent. Ideally putting something like Goyf on top and getting on the beatdown.
So Lukas Blohon taking the Serra Avenger there. At some point, that in principle could be a big play as the turn clock goes on, even if it doesn't get up to 4 lands. But lands very much part of the game for Lukas Blohon in a way that they're not for Thomas Enevoldsen this game. Finally hits his second land on turn 4 and has Athalia to play with it.
Yeah, Lukas could have gone for end of turn and Brainstorm on the previous turn, and he would have drawn into Ancestral Visions. We could second on top, draw on his card for a turn, play Shardless Agent and drawn 3 cards. That was a little bit risky there, so he's just going to wait it out, shuffles his deck here, and he might respond with a Brainstorm in response to the Thalia still, just to set up the Shardless Agent with Ancestral Visions again. And he will have the 4 mana for it. 3 for the Agent and 1 for Thalia's ability with that Ancestral Visions.
Draws into a Golgari charm as well there. That not a bad pickup. A way of getting rid of potentially a few creatures on the other side of the board. Particularly good against the likes of Mother of Runes. Doesn't target, does give -1/-1.
Yeah.
Good night, Nurse.
Here's the Shardless Agent, and we know that there's an Ancestral Visions that he set up so well with the Brainstorm. This is one of the most powerful plays this deck can do, and Lukas is now on 6-7 cards, firmly in a good position. Even though Lukas is down to 12 now after that attack, we know Thomas Enevoldsen hand is full of answers for creatures, so not much he will be able to do against the hand of Liliana, Double Abrupt Decay, Golgari Charm, and Baleful Strix, I believe.
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time for Lukas Blohon to get ahead in this game, but he has the tools to get there.
Yep.
Misty Rainforest fetching a basic forest here. And 3 mana for a Golgari Charm to kill off that Thalia. Follow up Baleful Strix, draw a card from that, and pass things back.
Thomas is getting to start to work on the creatures, and he will have to, because otherwise Lukas will be looking to equip something with his Umezawa's Jite. And well, with Thomas stepping out here, I assume this is what is going to happen here.
Does not take very many turns for Jite to close out a game.
Oof.
Starts off with a Brainstorm, sees all manner of good things, including Jace the Mind Sculptor. Doesn't have the second blue in play at the moment to be able to cast it immediately, but when your opponent's draw is looking a little patchy, looking at the top card of their deck and deciding if they want to draw it is just one of the ways to really close out a game.
Yeah, this game is really just getting out of control. Thomas really never recovering from that mulligan, but he couldn't really afford to go to five cards, I assume. So now actually instead of the Umezawa's Jite, I think Lukas is going to go for a Goyf and a land. It's just a 0/1 Goyf, but we know there's an Abrupt Decay as well. 2 copies actually. So Lukas just in full control here. Whenever I've seen similar spots for the Shardless deck, Thomas's deck was working much better overall, but he just struggled in the early game too much.
So Flicker Wisp here, flickering a basic land, and that meaning that Swords to Plowshare's mana is still up in spite of having tapped out to cast the Elemental to begin with. And in response to Rest in Peace being destroyed by Abrupt Decay, a Swords to Plowshares on that Tarmogoyf doesn't want it to get any bigger, any extra life for Lukas Blohon. But Lukas Blohon, drawing his second Planeswalker, he can now choose between Liliana or Jace. It may well be that he just goes for the legendary sword, though, of Umezawa's Jite, equips it to his Baleful Strix, swings in, gets a little bit of damage in this turn, but threatens a lot more in the future if there's not a way for Enevoldsen to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, this is fine for Thomas just now. He has the Council Judgment to get rid of the Jite, which is fine, but he's going to really struggle hard against the Liliana-Jace combination, as with a backup Abrupt Decay if needed.
Goes to the Council's Judgment. In response, Lukas Blohon gained some life with his Jite. That's the best use he had for those 2 charge counters. And here's Jace the Mind Sculptor, initially being used for the Brainstorm ability, the 0 ability on that Planeswalker. 4 abilities on Jace the Mind Sculptor, all of them pretty excellent. And just one of the win conditions for this Shardless Bug deck that can go controlling, it can go aggressive. Meanwhile, Brimaz, King of Oreskos on the other side of things for Thomas Enevoldsen.
It's a little bit too late. Thomas just didn't get out of the gates quickly enough, and once Lukas had the freedom to set up Ancestral Visions with his Brainstorm and Shardless Agent, the game fell pretty much over because his deck is full of answers, more than the traditional Shardless decks that the Thomas Enevoldsen had to be facing this weekend. So still more Brainstorm, more answers, and I think Thomas just Lukas is just gonna start putting on stuff on the board.
Yeah, Shardless Agent into another Ancestral Vision. Let's draw
all
3
the
more cards.
All of the cards.
Let's have a Deathrite Shaman. Pass with some mana up. Plenty of options in terms of instants. At this point, that's enough for Thomas Enevoldsen. He shakes the hand of his friend Lukas Blohon. Lukas advances to 13 and 2. Thomas drops to 13 and 2. We believe that will be good enough for both of them to make it into the top 8 here in Prague. And we are gradually closing in on what looks to be another fantastic elimination set of rounds here in Prague.
Yeah, two great players already locked for this top 8 in Thomas and Lukas. They might be playing against each other as well. We never know. So now Gianluca Gazzola with Alexander Hayne in their game 3. Gianluca has been doing really well this tournament. He was 13-0, picked up his first loss in the last round, losing to Thomas Enevoldsen actually. So now he's trying to stave off the second one. Even though we think he's locked in into the top 8, he also has great tiebreakers and 39 points already. But with 42, he would be first seed and would be playing first in every round, which for his deck is super relevant.
As things stand, though, not in great shape against the Grixis Delver deck of Alexander Hayne. While he's resolving a Brainstorm at the moment, so he's going to have good card quality. When it comes to what's on the board, all of those cards laid out there with the Brainstorm on top, that's actually Gianluca Gazzola's graveyard. Meanwhile, all of those permanents in play for Alexander Hayne, well, they are actually permanents in play.
Yeah. So double 3 elementals actually, double Deathrite Shaman as well as the Young Pyromancer. And Gianluca does have a Lightning Bolt and a Goyf in his hand, but even though he's beating down with the Vendilion Click, the board is pretty good for Alexander, who still also has a card of his own in his hand.
Yeah, you can see there, Alexander just sat there with one card face down. That's his card in hand, arms folded on the table. Hayne, very good at the kind of just giving the stare.
Yeah.
Just sitting there patiently watching your opponent doing things, knowing I'm in pretty reasonable shape. I'm just going to let you do your thing and let me know when I can do mine.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I asked Alexander Hayne, why'd you come all the way here to Prague? Are you hunting points? He's like, no, he's locked for platinum, but he said he's never been to Prague. He could stay at the Andrei Strarsky's place, his teammate, and there is the face-to-face booth in the area, so he has some friends coming along anyway. So yeah, he said, why not? He likes Legacy too, but switched from his trusted teamer Delver deck into Grixis.
Yeah, it's a small position change, but one that seems to be working out rather well from him. I mean, he was actually in the top 8 of the GP, the last GP that Thomas Enevoldsen won with.
Yeah.
In that case, he was Rug Delver against the Death and Taxes. This time round, Grixis Delver, but it looks like he might be able to lock up another top 8 here.
Yeah, you know he's known for having plenty of GP success. Did win a Pro Tour with Miracles, but yeah, that certainly wasn't
not the end of the story.
Yeah, of course. But he's been really looking for that Pro Tour success ever since. You know, he's been the GP Master last year, racing with Pascal Maynard. So he did play Worlds, and actually this is one way to get extra points. He wants to be in contention for the World slot, for the at-large spots, as we like to call them.
Yeah, North America, not an easy place to qualify on points. There's a lot of great North American pros, but those at-large slots, anyone anywhere on the planet can potentially scoop some up. And as players qualify in multiple ways, extra at-large slots open up. So pro points definitely valuable if you're one of those people that is at the top of the game. And that little number 15 next to Alexander Hayne's name indicates that he is currently the 15th ranked player in the world. And with that handshake, Alexander Hayne picks up the win, 2-1 for him. In all likelihood, we'll be seeing him in the top 8. Congratulations. Plenty of big games here in this last round here in Prague. By our reckoning, that means that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of our top 8 likely locked up. A little bit more play going on, but fairly shortly we will be getting a chance to move across to what we like to call the turbo matches as we move across to the top 8. So for me, Tim Willoughby and Matej Zalkai, we'll say goodbye for now, but do stay with us because very soon we're going to have our top 8 here in Prague.
Ready to take your game to the next level and start on the path to the Pro Tour? Rise to the challenge and test your skills at a local preliminary Pro Tour qualifier. To find an event near you, visit magic.wizards.com/pptq.